Welcome to On Giving, incisive commentary and analysis at the intersection of philanthropy and the greater good. I'm Liz Knuppel, President and CEO of Skystone Partners, where we believe philanthropy is a powerful force for good. So today we'll be talking to my friend and colleague, Masa Uo, who's joined us live, read that, live from Tokyo. And yes, it's 2 a.m. there, Tokyo time. So first of all, before I even introduce you, thank you, Masa. So delighted that it's great that you're here, and thank you for your dedication. We're all excited to hear what you've got to say. So for our friends in our attendee land, let me take a couple of minutes to introduce Masa. So Masa Uo is a distinguished figure in Japan's fundraising and social investment sector, and he's the founder and CEO of the Japan Fundraising Association. As a visionary leader, he has played a pivotal role in establishing a nationwide network dedicated to promoting philanthropic giving and social impact investment in Japan. Additionally, Masa is the driving force behind Fundrex, one of Japan's leading consulting firms that specializes in strategic development, impact management, and system consulting with over 150 nonprofit and social enterprise clients. And frankly, proud to say one of Skystone Partners' international strategic alliance partners. With a commitment to fostering a culture of giving and social innovation, Masa spearheaded the launch of the Certified Fundraiser program in Japan, and his efforts extend to organizing annual fundraising conferences in the country, reflecting his dedication to expanding the Learning by Giving program. Masa is not only the founder and CEO, but he is a key advocate for creating an ecosystem in Japan that nurtures social innovation and impact. Masa holds significant roles with various other organizations in the sector, serving as an ambassador of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, GSG, and the CEO of GSG Japan. He also contributes as a trustee of JANPIA, the Japan Network for Public Interest Activities, and impact wholesaler focusing on dormant bank accounts. Furthermore, Masa holds the position of Vice President at Shizen-kan Graduate School, further demonstrating his commitment to education and knowledge dissemination in the field. The Japan Fundraising Association, under Masa's leadership, has been designated as the country's representative of AVPN, which is the Asia Venture Philanthropy Network. And we'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure, today. And this recognition really solidifies his influence in shaping the landscape of philanthropy and social impact in Japan and worldwide. Masa Uo is not only a leader in the professional realm, but an accomplished author as well, having written and edited several books, both in Japanese and English. His publications cover a range of topics, including impact investing, fundraising, and giving, with such titles as Giving Japan, very similar to Giving USA, Fundraising Towards Social Change, The Roadmap Towards Social Innovation Market, and he was also a contributing author to the 2014-2015 AFP Skystone Partners Prize for Research in Fundraising and Philanthropy with the book Global Philanthropy. Beyond his professional endeavors, Masa is a devoted family man residing in Tokyo with his 2 children. His multifaceted contributions and leadership continue to leave a lasting impact on Japan's social sector, embodying a commitment to positive change and community development. So friends, attendees, everyone here today, please join me in welcoming Masa Uo as he shares his knowledge and perspectives about social change, philanthropy, innovations in the profession, and impact investing. So welcome, Masa. We're grateful. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. First of all, I'm very happy to have some participants coming from Ohio, because I spent several years in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I learned a lot from the experience and the practices of the fundraisers in the United States. And then I founded my own association 15 years ago based on the learning in the United States. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share what's happening in Tokyo and especially over the last 15 years. So
Wonderful.
thank you very much for giving me this great opportunity.
Super. We're really glad to have you. This is great. Before we get into our conversation, I want to give our attendees, our friends in attendee land, a couple little housekeeping notes. So first of all, I'll be interviewing Masa about his expertise, research, and professional work. And then we'll have a little bit of time for some Q&A in the Q&A session before we wrap up our conversation. If you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A feature that's located at the bottom of your screen. The chat feature where you said hello has been turned off in the meantime. Our question moderator for the day is Skystone Partners Senior Consultant Adrienne Taylor, and she'll receive her questions. She'll be curating them to make sure that Masa can answer as many of them as possible without duplication. Adrienne's behind the scenes, but she'll be joining us in a little bit. So now let's begin our conversation. We've got about 4 different parts today with a brief overview, Masa, of your leadership and impact investing, the fundraising ecosystem in development, and his commitment to volunteerism by connecting people through philanthropy. So Masa, there's been a shift in fundraising and philanthropy in Japan. There's been a real paradigm shift. Can you briefly, before we get to what's changed, can you give us an overview of philanthropy in Japan and maybe touch on some of the challenges, the triggering factors in this huge transformation in philanthropy in Japan? And this is going to lead us to the social impact investing, I think, right?
Okay, gotcha,
Excellent.
gotcha. So to briefly explain what kind of things happening in Japan, I'd like to share a few slides to give you their outline. Can you see the slide right now?
Yes, thank you.
Great, great. So just briefly, I'd like to share the background of what kind of social issues are there in Japan, and why fundraising is such matters in Japan right now. So this is a population pyramid, and in 1980, roughly 40, 50 years ago, the population pyramid of Japan was something like this. As you see, the younger generations are big population, while the seniors are very small. But in 2030, our population pyramid becomes like this. So as you see, that we are facing a huge aging society in Japan, and under these circumstances, the financial deficit of Japanese government has been increasing and increasing over the last 20 years. So the key background is that historically speaking, the Japanese people psychologically heavily relied on governmental services. But now, as you see, the paradigm shift is going on. Many people start to think that we can't heavily rely on governmental expenditure anymore. So this is a foundation of Japanese society that they start to think that the philanthropy and giving is more important than used to be. And another topic is that because of AI and technology and those kind of things, nowadays Japanese society is suffering from social isolation. This is a study conducted by OECD, and amazingly, the Japanese society is a huge social isolation country. And this is a root cause of various social issues right now in our society. So based on this background, giving is growing. But the situation is a little bit interesting thing is that, as you see, this is a Giving Japan, which we publish since 2009. And according to the statistics of Giving Japan report, as you see that in 2009, the roughly 33 to 34% of Japanese people gave donation at least once a year. And in 2011, we had a tsunami and earthquake in Japan. and roughly 25,000 people were killed by tsunami.
Right.
But this was a terrible incident. But the flip side of it, roughly 70% of Japanese people gave to the victims of the
Yes.
disaster. And this is, of course, one-shot event. But through this experience, as you see, even after the disaster, we see the growth of the ratio of donors. You see that 43 to 46% of Japanese people give at least once a year.
Yeah.
So as you may know, that Japan has so many earthquakes and natural disasters, but at the same time, through this kind of common experience, Japanese philanthropy is growing year by year. And another topic is the impact investment. It's interesting to see that the impact investment is growing significantly. Impact investment is looking at both social impact and economic impact. And last several years, we see the tremendous growth of impact investment in our society. So this is also coming from the perception change of Japanese society. So both giving and impact investment has been increasing in the society. So this is a basic background where we are now.
Right, right, absolutely. And so with this shift, the shift in the paradigm of Japanese philanthropy, that also includes one of the things when we were getting ready for our conversation, you had referenced not just with the giving, but also as it related to volunteerism, which I think is an important point for us to touch on in this shift in Japanese philanthropy. There's been a growing role of volunteerism, and I'd love for you to talk about why that happened, when that happened, and how impact investing, coupled with this growth in volunteerism, is working to address societal issues. So we've seen sort of, what the change was, what the precipitating event was, but can you talk a little bit more about how people are getting involved and why these are connected and why it's important?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. So the volunteerism in Japan also experienced a turning point in 1995. We had a Kobe earthquake. And it was also a terrible earthquake in 1995. 6,000 people were killed in a day. But flip side of it, we had 1.3 million volunteers. And many medias and the academicians start to say that it was a turning point in volunteerism in the society. And since then, the volunteerism has been growing. And as I mentioned, in 2011, we had a turning point in giving. And talking about the volunteerism, as you see, because of the growth of the social isolation, the government, or even government, the looking at the value of non-profit organization, the volunteerism, because the volunteerism can connect people, save people from isolation. It's not as a beneficiary. The volunteers also could be connected through helping others, right? So those kind of things are happening. And under these circumstances, the people start to think that philanthropy is not just for helping others, it's even helping donors and the volunteers to be connected with others. And talking about the impact investment, the interesting situation is that the many financial sector leaders start to seriously think about their role and the role of financial institutions to solve this kind of social issue. And they spontaneously sign up the impact-driven financial initiative. The background story is something like this. A couple of years ago, under the name of GSG, we launched financial-driven impact-driven financial institution initiative. And amazingly, roughly 65 the owners or banks or investment companies and president of these financial institutions sign up the principle of impact-driven financial institutions, and they started to promote impact investment in markets. This is also their voluntary contribution to the society. So those things are happening simultaneously in Japan.
But they really happened out of the same, they came out of the same sort of wellspring, the same disaster, so to speak, that, after the Kobe earthquake, people were seeing, hey, we need to connect folks. Volunteerism helps combat isolation. And what can we do? And they sort of, it's almost counterintuitive to think investing and volunteerism go hand in hand, but they developed in parallel. Were they connected or not connected as they developed in parallel at the same time?
Well, that's a good question. I think that those two trends, the growth of volunteerism and the growth of impact investment, were not strategically aligned or designed to collectively grow. But the volunteers and the investors are the same people. So the people who volunteers also may prefer to choose an impact investment product instead of a conventional or traditional investment product. So it is connected actually, but it may be happening in the United States, in the world, but the people who promote volunteers are usually non-profit leaders, and the people who promote impact investments are usually coming from financial sector. So there are those two different groups, but the people are same, so that the people are affected by these two initiatives, and it's happening simultaneously right now.
Right. So strategically not aligned, but sort of fortuitously aligned. And what is the impact of this rise of impact? What's the effect of the rise in impact investing and the integration of volunteers on Japan's evolving philanthropic landscape?
Yeah. So, this is also the big challenge for us now. As I showed you, the impact investment has been significantly growing. And now roughly 30 billion US dollars is the total asset under management for impact investment, and it's tremendously growing. But it's rapidly growing, but still, what we are discussing right now is that whether the vulnerable people on ground are truly really helped, saved by these kind of impact investments. This is a very important question we should have. The total amount of investment has been growing, while still, we haven't seen the real impact on the ground level yet. And so what we are discussing right now is that the role of non-profit organization of philanthropy is very important. So someone needs to fulfill their last one mile, which means that although the total capital of impact investment has been growing, someone needs to provide additional support to the impact investment project to achieve last 1 mile for vulnerable people. And so now what we are discussing right now is that yes, impact investment is growing, which is good, but the impact philanthropy is also very important to maximize the impact of impact investment.
Right, because that last 1 mile, who fills in that gap of the last 1 mile? The nonprofit organizations, right?
Yes, exactly. Without getting the support by non-profit organization and philanthropic money and giving the impact investment is just amount of capital. And impact transparency is also very important nowadays in the world and in Japan. The many financial institutions would like to put a label of impact on their existing products sometimes. So someone needs to measure whether this kind of impact investment could create real impact. And the next question is who will measure their impact. We think that the non-profit organization needs to be involved in this kind of a measurement process. Otherwise, someone just write a nice report for financial institutions. So this is our challenge. This is also another reason why the Japan Fundraising Association broaden our scope. Usually, like AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals, usually the fundraising associations in many countries are focusing on providing conference opportunities or education opportunities for fundraisers. But in our society, our fundraising association needs to expand our target. We invite the financial institutions from impact investment arena, and we invite the foundations to provide a grant for impact philanthropy. And we combine impact investors and impact philanthropy foundations and fundraisers. We create a space for those three sectors sit together to harmonize their effort. So this is what we are doing right now.
Right. And so when all three sectors come together, basically what's happening is you're creating a fundraising ecosystem. Yep. So how can we as fundraisers be empowered in, how can we grow the fundraising ecosystem to include all of these potential revenue streams? And how can we as fundraisers be empowered to create greater and greater social change through this fundraising ecosystem?
Yeah, this is also a great question. Just briefly, I would like to introduce what kind of fundraising association we are organizing right now. Sure. It's a little bit unique hybrid model, as I said. Yeah. This is this is a fundraising association model.
Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you.
Yeah, you see on the screen that the fundraising FRJ 2024. This is our conference. Like we have our annual conference, the fundraising in Japan, and actually on March 9, we're gonna have a next in-person conference in Tokyo, and usually roughly 1,000 delegates join, basically in Japanese, but some delegates from US and Korea and some Asian countries together. So this is, I think that this is the largest conference, fundraising conference in Japan. But this conference is very important platform where, as I said, the impact philanthropy leaders from foundations and impact investors sit together to discuss how they can, harmonize their efforts. And yes, as Liz said at the beginning, we provide our own credential. As you know, that we have a CFRE in the world, but we need to adjust fundraising practice to the local context. Yes. So roughly 14 years ago, we established our own certified fundraising program. But the interesting part is that I got also CFRE test, and I learned a lot from that test. But in our case, in our text, we cover the story of impact philanthropy and impact investment. So all certified fundraisers in Japan, now we have 1,600 fundraisers, certified fundraisers. All fundraisers needs to understand how impact investment works and how impact philanthropy works in the world. Right. And so this is what we expect is that the fundraisers in the future, fundraisers 2.0, need not only focusing on their own organization's fundraising, but we expect that they need to play a role to facilitate various funding sources for creating real impact. So, and also we are looking at donors through providing an education program, especially for young kids. And we organize a giving awareness campaign. As you all know, that the Giving Tuesday was born in the United States, and the Giving Tuesday is usually the one day, right? So we created a Giving December campaign. It's a 30 days long campaign because we are relatively new in terms of promoting giving, and so we are relatively new stage, so that one day is not enough. So we created a 30 days campaign, but it's working very well now. 800 big corporate government and universities joined together, and more than 200 events of awareness campaign working in Japan. And the last but not least, and the system change we're gonna do, yes, we incubated social impact measurement platform. As I told you, in order to promote impact investment, measurement is key. And we, as a philanthropic ecosystem builder, we created impact investment measurement platform. And now more than 200 organizations joined together to share knowledge. And of course, the biggest is very important, so we create a Legacy Giving Association. This is also another platform we created. So through this kind of model, I would like to share that yes, this is a member of Japan Fundraising Association, and some from the business sector, some from the investment sector. So as a hub of ecosystem, we invite people from various backgrounds working together to harmonize efforts. And I'm very happy to share that we are growing over the last 15 years. Now we have 1,600 certified fundraisers. So this is a brief background of what actually we are doing as fundraising association. And yeah, this is where we are now to develop ecosystem.
So really, all of the collaboration amongst the corporate partners, the corporate friends, the foundations, the fundraisers themselves is really around fundraising. It's building a better and more robust ecosystem around fundraising. But what I hear that I think most of us would agree with is measurement is key. If you're looking, whether you're looking at impact philanthropy or impact investing. So it's all of these voices coming together and making sure that the fundraisers of today and tomorrow understand impact investing and impact philanthropy, but also identifying how we're going to measure the impact of these investments, right? So that's kind of how, if unless I'm incorrect, that's how the collaboration of national, international partnerships contribute to a more favorable fundraising ecosystem. Are there other components that really help build this ecosystem that will empower fundraisers to continue to change the world?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so moving on from there, you mentioned legacy giving and how important it is, particularly in Japan with the aging population, really skewing over to higher. Legacy giving is becoming more important. So you're thinking about impact philanthropy, impact investing, building a healthy ecosystem in the country and really across Asia. But how are legacy giving and dormant bank accounts currently sort of accelerating philanthropy, or how do you anticipate that they will accelerate philanthropy? Because I don't think we've talked about the dormant bank accounts at all, but it's really a piece of this puzzle.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, yes, you're right. When we established Fundraising Association 15 years ago, we didn't have enough bequest
Mhm.
movement, and the high net worth individuals have not started philanthropy yet.
Mhm.
And so even though we trained certified fundraisers, they have very limited access to potential financial resources. So this is the reason why we decided to create a collective advocacy campaign to unlock our dormant bank account
Mhm.
to provide more resources to fundraisers and nonprofit organizations. So background-wise, in Japan's law and regulation, if you leave your bank account untouched for 10 years, it's used to become the profit of the bank.
Mm.
But it doesn't make sense because it's people's money. It's not the bank's money. So in 2017, we created a nationwide campaign and succeeded to unlock the dormant bank account by enacting a new law.
Mm.
And amazingly, that the every year, $1 billion become dormant in Japan.
Wow.
We Japanese love to save money in the bank and sometimes forget about it. And so we unlocked the dormant bank account remaining asset for social innovation.
Mhm.
And then we created one impact wholesaler, which is Jampier. I'm a
Mhm.
board of director of Jampier right now. And we provided that amount grant
Mhm.
to nonprofit organizations. Last 3 years, more than 1,000 nonprofit organizations got the grant from dormant bank account. Now, from this year, actually from next week, we also started impact investment program with dormant bank account. So this is like impact wholesaler. Wholesaler means that it's not a conventional traditional grant making association. In Jampier, the impact wholesaler, they provide a grant through community foundations or impact fund.
Mhm.
So that they select the intermediaries. Roughly now the 190 intermediaries throughout the country was selected as distributed. Then through these intermediaries, we provide grant and impact investment to the grant. So this is a very important catalytic capital for
Mhm.
creating social innovation in a society. So this is a dormant bank account, which is a very important asset nowadays. And now we are sharing this experience with other countries, especially Asia, and the financial sector in Taiwan and the financial sector in Indonesia and other countries also would like to unlock dormant bank accounts for social innovation. This is the one very important portion. And the bequest is also under this aging society, the legacy giving is booming right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we created a nationwide platform for seniors, elderly people, because many elderly people would like to give back to the community. Amazingly, roughly 40% of Japanese seniors, would like to write a will
Mhm.
for charities, while in reality, only 0.1% of them actually do,
Mhm.
because no one gives support to them to
Ah.
write the will. And they don't know how to do that. And they couldn't find appropriate recipient nonprofit organization. So now we created a platform. We provide a free consultation center for
Mhm.
seniors throughout the country. And now 10 free consultation center are available nationwide. And it's significantly accelerating legacy giving in our society. Likewise, we see this kind of system change in our society, which is really exciting.
Right. So really what's happening is a robust and sort of comprehensive portfolio of giving opportunities is blooming. So there's
Yeah.
regular outright giving. There's folks who are, corporations and foundations who are doing impact philanthropy, well, foundations and individuals doing impact philanthropy, corporations maybe doing some impact investing. Then you have this other attribute over here with the dormant bank accounts that you're unlocking and being able to really reach boots on the ground through the community foundations or whoever the selected intermediaries are through Jampia, and then unlocking again that further piece of a comprehensive philanthropy environment with the bequests, with the legacy giving.
Yeah.
So how are high net worth individuals participating in impact investing, in philanthropy, in bequests, in volunteerism, and how do you see the participation of them playing out?
Yeah. Thank you very much for asking. Yes, this is also a very important part of our strategy. And especially, interesting thing is that especially after COVID-19, we see the paradigm shift among high net worth individuals. Historically speaking, Japanese high net worth wealthy people are criticized because criticized by the society that they don't give much, give back to the community. They don't give charities. However, during and after COVID-19, many wealth managers of the banks told me that, Masa, the situation has been changing. Our clients start to ask how they can contribute to community. So we see this paradigm shift in that part too. So 2 years ago, we, together with wealth managers and the major banks, we created a platform, like one-stop platform. This is the Japan Philanthropic Foundation, where we provide a kind of one-stop service for high net worth to achieve their will, the passion. And for example, we support to help them to create a foundation, or we provide the donor advice fund services for them. And we got a call from high net worth almost every week, and it's amazingly working well right now. So we see also the changes in mindset of high net worth in Japan right now. So it's not quick start, slow start, a little bit, day by day. The situation is changing right now. So the dormant bank account also playing a very important role, especially given the situation where non-profit organization itself are invisible by public. In order to attract public attention more to the non-profit organizations, with the grant of a dormant bank account, non-profit organization can create relatively scalable impact. And that will help them to attract more potential donors from the community. So that we would like to harmonize those kinds of things. With dormant bank account, non-profit organization can scale up, and that will connect high net worth and legacy givers to those kind of non-profit organizations. So we harmonize those kind of things together.
Yeah. So a lot of really interesting specific initiatives are being aimed at philanthropy right now. And it seems as though the number of people, the proportion of wealth being given, all of those things are kind of on overdrive with all of these different vehicles being mobilized together in harmony. Yeah. So when you think about the future, and this is the last question before I see we've got a couple of questions coming in, and Adrian's behind the scenes helping us out. But in the future, what is your vision in terms of the interconnected roles going forward with impact investing, with volunteerism, with outright giving? So how do you envision these, I guess we'll call it serendipitous partnerships that weren't necessarily strategically aligned, but sort of have begun to be more and more strategically aligned. What do you see the role, and what's your vision for what this can look like in the future?
Thank you. Yes, I think for me, changing society is not just creating something new product or services. Changing society is changing the paradigm of people. And in this context, our biggest challenge is now education. How we can upgrade the quality and level of philanthropic education and giving education, especially for young generation. So as a part of this challenge, but we have been doing it a lot, so many things over the last 15 years, but still the young generation was not fully energized and excited with giving. So last year we created a card game. This is from me. This is a very interesting card game, and we are now expanding this card game. You know, it's kind of it's very fun card game, but through this card game, the kids can easily understand how their donation can change the world. And the key thing is that it's not just there for others. In the ecosystem, in the society, those kind of donation will also benefit to their family or themselves. So this kind of thing could be experienced within an hour. So this is a very interesting argument. But for example, we are doing this kind of things, and this is a part of our effort to changing the paradigm of young generation. And second thing we now challenging is that we now in Asia, in Japan, Korea, China, there are fundraising associations like us. And in Europe, I think more than 10 fundraising associations are already there. But we don't see a fundraising association in other Asian countries. So from last year, Japan Fundraising Association developed a new strategy that we would like to expand the fundraising association in Asian countries. So we had one-on-one meetings with Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Nepal, etc., and share our experiences and stimulating the core of fundraisers group in respective countries to set up the ecosystem in their countries.
Right.
So this is our challenge right now. Now in Europe, there is a European Fundraising Association. This is an association and network of country representative of fundraising associations. But in Asia, we don't have it. But in 5-10 years, we'd like to create Asian Fundraising Association because we have a lot of commonalities in philanthropic culture. Of course, there are a lot of differences, but we can learn from these kind of differences. So we would like to create this kind of platform in Asia where fundraising association can learn each other. So this is my challenge.
That's your challenge, but that's your vision for the future, is really reaching the young people from the time they're bitty with the card game, and then making sure that there are professional associations so that people who are involved in this important work of changing the world have colleagues, have best practices, etc. I love that. Adrian, I think, is going to join us. I think I've seen a couple, at least one question come in. Adrian, are you ready, set, go? What do we have from our audience members today?
So our first question is focused around the actual association and maybe the field of professional fundraisers in Japan. What is the gender balance for FRJ in regards to male, female? I know it's heavily weighted female here in the US. What is the composition?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. Yes, my gut feeling is that I think that quite similar to the United States. Maybe I would say that the 60% of our fundraisers are male and 40% are female, and yeah, this is something like that, and well, yeah, it is something like that, 60 to 40. So I
Not
think
too
I'm
far.
not sure what's happening in the United States right now, but yeah.
You know, that's very similar. Actually, if I can interject, pardon me, Adrian, didn't mean to steal the show, but if you look back in the United States, in our fundraising world, let's say look back 50 years, that was easily dominated by men, maybe as much as 80-20, the way it is now skewed to women in the United States. But so that's interesting because we've seen a shift over the past half century in our world here in the United States. I know not all of our attendees are from the United States, but here in Cincinnati, we've seen a shift. So interesting, more male fundraisers. What other questions might we have?
So on your slide, Masa, you talked about social impact measurements, and I wanted to know what are some of those social impact measurements that have been established or that you're seeing people use to really say, we're moving missions forward, we're really, seeing the fruits of our labor and having that maximum ROI.
Okay, so usually, basically social impact measurement is really tough. It's not easy always, right? So some social issues are really difficult to measure, like for example, education or paradigm shift or mindset change. Those kinds of things are really tough to evaluate. And so what we did at the first time, it was that we created a platform, as I said, and share best practice of measurement or KPI set. Well, we introduced more than 700 KPIs, sample KPIs, how we can measure impact in education, for example, how you can measure impact for vocational training for special needs kids, or likewise, we classify those kind of categories and we show we accumulate all kinds of knowledge from the practitioners. As I told you, the more than 200 organizations joined, and they provide their key performance indicators and their measurement metrics, those kind of information. So we set a database. This is a kind of free platform database, which can be utilized by anyone. And so this is a very first step we don't want to say that, okay, you should do this kind of measurement, you should do that kind of measurement. This is up to the nonprofit organization. But the first thing we wanted to do is that share the best knowledge platform for them to make it easier for them. And the second thing we did is that but in order to accelerate impact measurement, of course, some nonprofit organizations are reluctant to do measurement because it's really difficult sometimes.
Right.
But in order to attract public attention, to mobilize more resources from public, we need to demonstrate, we need to show the evidence that we nonprofit organization doing great work. And also, under the circumstances of financial deficit of the government, even the government sector would like to know the evidence of social innovation created by nonprofit organizations. And they would like to adapt those kind of best practices as a policy. And the government sector also would like to create a program based on the evidence-based policy-making process. And so so this is a very important background. And so the next challenge is that next approach from us is that we need to motivate, give incentive to non-profit organizations and social businesses to start impact measurement. And this is also the hidden purpose of unlocking dormant bank account. As I told you, now the 1 billion could be utilized for social innovation. And in the newborn impact wholesaler, all recipients of non-profit organizations of by the dormant bank account needs to conduct impact measurement. And we allocate budget for doing that. They need to recruit, that expert from, evaluation field, and they need to bear cost. And the dormant bank account can provide this kind of the money for them. So in Japan, unfortunately, usually donors and the foundations reluctant to the pay evaluation cost. So dormant bank account can play that role to provide grant for them to do that.
Oh, I love this idea of community learning and bringing what's working at different institutions together to see, is this impact measurement going to really tell the story or provide the right information to show that we truly are making an impact. I kind of wish we had that when I saw that change where lots of organizations were looking for a deeper impact, trying to measure how they're moving the needle from a systems change. And I know that there were some organizations that were spot on with impact measurements. There were other organizations that were like, we just don't know how to, what KPIs we need to measure. So I really like that idea of providing a space where people can jump in and grab ideas. I'm going to stay on this topic with another question that came in that same vein about measurements, because they are important. We have an attendee asking, what are some of the challenges, if you're even facing these challenges yet, around data accessibility, privacy, and sharing information?
Yeah, but this is also a very important question. Yes. Sometimes it's very difficult to share those kind of information and privacy. Yes, there is privacy, and the ethics and principle is also very important. So we provide education opportunity for many for evaluation specialists in the society to understand how should it work. And this kind of thing is done by our social impact measurement initiative. But it's fully depend on the situation and the context and the organization. We don't have any single answer. So this is also the very big challenge for us, and how far we can go. Always, yes, this is very good question, and we are also always thinking how we can do. Yes.
Absolutely. Do we have time for one more, Liz?
One more, and I might be able to offer some context about this question, but do you want to?
Well, go ahead, Liz.
Right. So the question is, I heard the phrase venture philanthropy earlier on, but haven't heard much spoken about it. And so I just wanted to say, in the introduction, I did reference that the Japan Fundraising Association has been designated as the country representative for the Asia Venture Philanthropy Network. But the question is, and Masa, I don't know if you're prepared to answer it or if we've even got the amount of time to be able to answer. The question is, could you give a bit more information about this term, meaning venture philanthropy, in comparison to impact investing or impact philanthropy? So I just wanted to make sure that folks understood it's a little outside of our scope today, but that's okay, right?
Yep. So firstly, the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network is a very interesting and influential platform in Asia. And it was originally initiated by European Venture Philanthropy Network. the concept-wise. Now in Africa, African Venture Financial Association, ABPN, Asian Venture Financial Association there right now. And the venture philanthropy concept is that historically speaking, we call the venture philanthropy as it's not just providing grant. We focus on outcomes and impact. This is a venture philanthropy. So not only providing grants, they may give hands-on support and technical support to maximize the impact. So this is the concept of venture philanthropy. And now this is like a venture capital. Usually venture capital provide capital and also the provider managerial support or technical support to maximize their profit, right? Mm-hmm. So the same concept happened in venture philanthropy and the venture capital. And but nowadays we prefer to use the impact philanthropy because impact investment is emerging, and this is the impact philanthropy and opposite side. But talking about the ABPM, Asia Venture Philanthropy is the largest network of foundations and impact-focused companies. And now roughly 600 foundations and impact-focused companies joined together from all over Asia, from 38 countries. And Japan Fundraising Association is playing a Japan country representative role for ABPM. And what we would like to do is branded finance is key, is now in most of the Asian countries. And the background-wise, if you look at the U.S. market, your market has huge giving market, and you have the big giving market, while in most Asian countries, giving is growing, but still not so big. Mm-hmm. So in order to help people, yes, giving is very important, but impact investment is also very important. So we merge those kind of things. And on the platform ABPM, the ABPM is the best platform where impact philanthropists and impact investors join together to discuss how they can work together. Mm. So the branded financing is a very important keyword in Asia right now. And this is the reason why ABPM is working on. And from last year, we become a country representative, and we would like to contribute to ABPM through mobilizing resources from Japan. So this is what we did.
Thank you, Masa. I think that is all of our questions for today. I'll kick it back over to you, Liz, to close us out.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much, both of you. It's been a great, really interesting conversation. And as we come to the conclusion of today's insightful conversation, I simply want to extend our gratitude to Masa for getting up very early in the morning and sharing his wealth of knowledge and experience in impact investing, fundraising and its ecosystem, and how the transformative power of volunteerism and philanthropy on community building, how it has an effect on community building and total social well-being, not just for the recipients, but for the donors as well. Masa's leadership in fundraising and the social investment sector is truly remarkable. From his role as the founder of the Japan Fundraising Association to his contributions as an ambassador for the Global Steering Group for Investment and as a trustee of JAMPIA, Masa's been at the forefront of driving positive change and social innovation across the globe. As we all look ahead, Masa's dedication to fostering a culture of giving and social innovation continues to inspire us all. At least I hope it does. It does for me, for sure. We're grateful, Masa, for your multifaceted contributions and leadership, which leave a lasting impact on Japan's social sector and beyond. Thank you for all your insights today. Guests, thank you for attending and joining us on this truly enlightening journey. If you have an interest in some of Masa's writings, I believe that Sarah's got a QR code to flash up on the screen for us. You can scan that and find some connections to his work. And friends, as we close today, I encourage you to join us for our next On Giving on Tuesday, March the 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for the yet to be publicly announced 2024 winner of the AFP Skystone Partners Prize for Research winner, as we explore her fascinating research. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, go forth, do good work, and remember, philanthropy is a powerful force for good.